Solitude is not absence, but the presence of oneself. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt guilty for simply wanting to stay home, far away from the chaos outside? Society keeps telling you that real life only happens out there, at parties, in loud conversations, in the noise of endless social gatherings. But what if Jung was right when he said that turning inward can sometimes be more powerful than any crowd? When you close your door and choose stillness over noise, you're not running from life, you're stepping into a deeper version of it. That quiet impulse you've always had, the desire to withdraw, is not laziness. It's a profound signal from your psyche asking you to protect your energy and return to what feels authentic. Jung explained that our inner energy, what he called the psychic current, flows in two directions: outward for extroverts, inward for introverts. Neither is superior, but knowing which path is yours can change the way you live. If the world drains you but silence restores you, you've already uncovered your natural rhythm. This video isn't about glorifying isolation or shaming sociability. It's about honoring the truth Jung emphasized, that every soul needs its own sanctuary, a space where it can breathe without masks. For many, that sanctuary is the home, a place not of escape, but of restoration. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore 7 truths that shed light on why some people thrive in silence. From sensitivity to external chaos, to the search for authenticity, to the hidden dangers of too much solitude, these insights will reshape the way you see yourself. So stay with me until the end, not to convince you of something, but to show you that your way of being carries meaning, strength, and wisdom. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize that the silence you cherish has been your greatest source of power all along. Jung believed that every person carries a vital force he called psychic energy. Some people release it outward, thriving on stimulation, parties, and endless conversations. Others, however, draw it inward, finding strength not in noise, but in stillness. For them, home is not confinement. It is where their energy returns to life. Think of it this way. A battery has a specific kind of charger. For extroverts, the charger is the crowd. For introverts, it's silence. Forcing yourself to recharge in the wrong place only drains you further. That's why you may leave a party feeling exhausted, yet feel reborn after a quiet evening alone. Practical example. Imagine someone spending hours at a bustling shopping mall. The lights, the voices, the endless stimulation leave them restless. Later, they sit at their desk, open a notebook, and just write. Suddenly, their thoughts clear, their body relaxes, and inspiration appears. Same person, different charger. Jung warned that ignoring this natural current is like swimming against the river. You can push for a while, but you'll always end up tired. Accepting that your soul recharges inward allows you to flow with your design instead of against it. And flowing with it changes everything. In that silence, thoughts arrange themselves, emotions settle, creativity awakens, and clarity rises. What the crowd could never give, the quiet gives freely. This is why staying home isn't weakness, it's alignment. It's listening to the unique rhythm that was written into your being. Here's something to try. Once a week, practice active retreat. Turn off your phone, brew some tea, and read something nourishing like Man and His Symbols by Jung, or simply write down whatever surfaces in your mind. That little ritual is how you step into your own current. Once you start honoring this inward flow, you'll see life differently. You'll realize you were never fragile. You were simply wired to recharge in silence. And with that clarity, you'll be ready to uncover another truth: why the outside world feels so overwhelming in the first place. Jung noticed that some people carry a psychic structure that is far more porous than others. For them, nothing stays on the surface. Every sound, glance, or word sinks deep inside and echoes for hours. What others dismiss as background noise can feel like an emotional storm they cannot ignore. This is why a simple trip to the supermarket can leave you drained. The chatter, the bright lights, the movement all at once. Your nervous system absorbs it like a sponge. It's not weakness, and it's not being too dramatic. It's just the way your inner system is wired, and it deserves respect. Think of two friends leaving the same movie theater. One is ready to grab dinner, energized by the crowd. The other, though, feels heavy, eager to go home, switch off the lights, and just breathe. Same event, different impact. The second person experienced the night more intensely, and intensity demands recovery. That's why home often becomes the natural filter. It's not antisocial behavior, it's self-preservation. The walls of your room are not barriers, but boundaries. They let you decide what enters your field and what doesn't. Without those boundaries, overstimulation easily turns into anxiety, irritability, or even exhaustion. Practical wisdom here. Choose your environments carefully. Pick a quiet cafe over a noisy bar. Go for a walk in the park instead of a crowded mall. Play instrumental music when your mind feels cluttered. These small adjustments aren't avoidance, they're strategy. They protect your energy from unnecessary leaks. And here lies the hidden gift. Sensitivity is also a superpower. It allows you to notice subtleties others miss, to empathize more deeply, to feel life with rare intensity. Many artists, writers, and visionaries lived with this openness, transforming chaos into beauty. What seemed fragile was actually a hidden strength. When you finally accept that sensitivity, you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" That shift turns overwhelm into wisdom, and it naturally leads to the next discovery. Why shallow connections can feel emptier than solitude itself. Jung once said that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate what feels important. For those who turn inward, the hardest part is not solitude. It's the superficiality of many social exchanges. Small talk can drain more energy than an entire evening spent in silence. An inward soul craves authenticity. It needs conversations that have depth, presence, and truth. That's why being in a room full of smiling faces can still feel isolating, because nothing real is being shared. Presence without depth is just absence wearing a mask. And masks are what the introvert resists most. Picture it. At a party, people chat about fashion or gossip. You laugh along, but inside it feels hollow. Later, you sit with a close friend, talking about fears, dreams, or philosophy. That moment lights you up. It's not the number of words spoken, but the weight they carry that matters. This is why home often feels like sacred ground. There, you don't need to pretend excitement or hide your fatigue. You don't have to edit your words or adjust your tone to fit in. At home, you can simply exist, unedited, unfiltered, authentic. That freedom is becoming rare in today's world. The key, then, is selectivity. Two friends who share real truths are worth more than 20 acquaintances who only skim the surface. That selectivity is not isolation, it's clarity. You're choosing relationships that nourish the soul rather than clutter it. Less quantity, more depth. That's the unspoken rule. Practical example, shift your conversations intentionally. Instead of asking someone, "How's work?" try, "What's been inspiring you lately?" That tiny shift opens doors to real connection. It also reveals quickly who is willing to go deeper and who isn't. Authenticity cannot be forced, but it can be invited. And here's the courage in it. Choosing depth means risking being different. Not everyone is ready for authenticity, but when you find those who are, the bond is worth more than 100 shallow ties. This hunger for truth naturally prepares you for another discovery, why silence itself becomes the doorway to selfhood. Jung described individuation as the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. But he made one thing clear. This journey does not reveal itself in the noise of constant activity. It emerges in the stillness, where the psyche has enough room to breathe. Silence isn't emptiness, it's presence in its purest form. When you choose solitude, you're not running away. You're answering a call from within. In that pause, buried thoughts rise. Forgotten emotions surface, and neglected pieces of yourself return to view. What looks like doing nothing from the outside is actually the beginning of profound integration. Try this simple practice. Spend 30 minutes in silence with a journal nearby. Write down whatever comes: images, words, emotions, even nonsense. You'll notice patterns and insights appearing, as if your unconscious is whispering truths you've ignored. That is individuation in motion, a slow stitching together of your inner world. Most people avoid this silence because they're afraid of what they might discover. It's easier to drown themselves in distractions than to face their own depths. But those who dare to listen find that silence is not a threat. It's a teacher. It offers truth, clarity, and a sense of groundedness nothing external can provide. Jung saw individuation as a dance of opposites: light with shadow, conscious with unconscious, reason with intuition. Silence is where this dance begins. Without the world's interruptions, the mind can finally harmonize its contradictions, shaping a stronger, truer identity. History is full of proof. Writers, scientists, and artists retreated into solitude not because they hated the world, but because they needed space to hear themselves. Thoreau at Walden Pond, Jung with his Red Book, their silence was not retreat, but creation. They returned from solitude carrying treasures. That's why silence should never be mistaken for weakness. It is the ground where your scattered pieces reconnect. And the more you embrace it, the more you'll realize another truth Jung warned about. Every strength has a shadow, and solitude is no exception. Jung taught that every quality in the psyche has a shadow. Introversion, while powerful, is no exception. The home that serves as sanctuary can also become a cage. What begins as renewal and clarity may, when taken too far, turn into avoidance, isolation, and silent suffering. The line is thin. Taking time alone to recharge is healthy, but hiding from conflict, fear, or responsibility under the cover of solitude is different. When the walls no longer protect but imprison, silence stops being medicine and becomes poison. Jung warned that even healing forces can distort if left unchecked. Imagine someone who starts declining social invitations to protect their peace. At first, it feels good, but months later, they notice a heaviness. Loneliness creeps in, joy fades, and the thought of facing the outside world feels terrifying. What once was choice has quietly become compulsion. Individuation requires balance between inner and outer. You don't need to morph into an extrovert, but you must avoid the extreme of total withdrawal. Wholeness is about rhythm. Retreat to gather strength, then return to share what you've found. Without that balance, growth stalls and shadows take control. Practical safeguard. Create bridges out of solitude. Schedule a weekly walk with a trusted friend, volunteer in a quiet environment, or take part in meaningful activities that connect you gently with the world. The goal isn't noise, it's maintaining circulation between your inner and outer life. The shadow is not your enemy, it is a signal. It shows where strength risks tipping into weakness. Recognizing it is already an act of power. By naming the danger, you reclaim choice. You turn the prison door into an open gate, ready to step through when your soul calls. When you learn to walk this edge wisely, solitude transforms from trap to tool. And it is in that transformation that another treasure appears. The vast, creative world waiting within your unconscious. Jung believed the unconscious was not just a storage room of forgotten memories, but a living ocean filled with symbols, images, and raw, creative force. Those who embrace solitude have greater access to this hidden ocean. And what they find there is not emptiness, it's inspiration waiting to be shaped. Most assume creativity thrives on external stimulation, but for many introverted souls, it is the opposite. Their best ideas come not from crowds, but from stillness. It's in those quiet hours when the noise dies down that their mind weaves threads together and reveals patterns others can't see. History proves it. Beethoven, trapped in silence by deafness, composed masterpieces from his inner world. Jung himself poured visions into his Red Book, laying foundations for modern psychology. Their solitude wasn't a void. It was a laboratory where imagination and insight fused into creation. You can cultivate the same. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Write down fragments of thought during quiet evenings. Explore meditation or guided visualization. These aren't mystical luxuries. They're tools to open the gates to your unconscious. And once opened, the flow of ideas rarely stops. The beauty of this inner creativity is its authenticity. You don't chase trends or mimic what's popular. Instead, you tap into a voice that feels undeniably your own. That originality is magnetic. People sense when something comes from depth rather than imitation. Depth always outlasts fashion. This connection also breeds resilience. While others depend on constant validation to feel worthy, you drink from your own well. Having that inner spring means you can create, recover, and keep moving even when the outside world grows harsh. That independence is priceless in uncertain times. When you recognize your inner world as a source, your solitude becomes fertile ground, not barren soil. And this discovery naturally brings you face to face with another truth, learning to move at your own pace, not the frantic rhythm of the crowd. In a culture obsessed with speed, slowing down feels like rebellion. Jung often reminded us that every soul has its own tempo, and forcing it to match the frantic pace of the collective only creates fractures. Walking slowly isn't weakness, it's loyalty to your essence. While others fill their calendars with back-to-back obligations, the inward soul finds power in pause. Each quiet moment brings clarity. Each rest restores energy. Quick results may impress in the short term, but consistency and authenticity come only from honoring your natural rhythm. Real-life examples prove it. Morgan Freeman became globally known only after 50. Jose Saramago earned the Nobel Prize late in life. They weren't late. They were right on time, walking at the tempo of their own destiny. The soul has no stopwatch. It has seasons. In practice, respecting your rhythm means small, intentional choices. Turning off screens at night, saying no to an unnecessary meeting, working in focused bursts, and then pausing. These aren't inefficiencies. They're strategies for long-term strength. Balance keeps you productive without burning out. Slowing down also increases quality. It's not about doing less. It's about doing better. Jung insisted that individuation has no deadlines. It unfolds step by step at the pace the psyche demands. Forcing it only delays true growth. Another hidden gift? Self-respect. When you follow your own tempo, you stop measuring your life against others. Their rush no longer pressures you, because you know your path is unique. That freedom to ignore comparison is one of the greatest victories of the inner life. And once you embrace your rhythm, something else awakens. The courage to stand apart from the herd. You no longer need to move where everyone else moves, and that independence is the gateway to the next truth. From the beginning, society trains us to blend in, to dress like others, think like others, and never rock the boat. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. But for those who feel drawn inward, that mask is heavy. Choosing silence over noise is already an act of quiet rebellion. Criticism often follows, "You're antisocial. You're missing out. Why don't you just be normal?" These aren't questions, they're demands to conform. Yet every time you stay true to your rhythm instead of bending to pressure, you send a powerful message. I don't need your approval to exist. That is real strength. History proves it. Steve Jobs spent years in introspection before changing technology forever. Nikola Tesla, often alone, turned his solitude into visions that lit the world. They weren't outsiders by accident. They were outsiders by choice. Their courage to stand apart became the seed of innovation. In daily life, this courage shows up in smaller ways, declining a plan that doesn't resonate, pursuing hobbies others find odd, reading Jung instead of scrolling endlessly. Each choice may look minor, but together they forge a life guided by authenticity rather than applause. Of course, it isn't easy. Standing apart often means walking alone for stretches of the road. You'll face misunderstanding and labels. But Jung reminded us that individuation requires separation from the collective. Without stepping away, you never hear your own voice above the crowd. The paradox is that the more you embrace your difference, the more value you bring back. True contribution doesn't come from imitation, it comes from originality. And originality is born in those who dare to reject the herd's path and clear their own. This courage to stand apart prepares you for the next leap, not just resisting the superficial, but actively choosing experiences that nourish your soul instead of cluttering your life. Jung believed the soul does not grow through accumulation, but through meaning. In a culture that glorifies more friends, more events, more noise, the inward soul knows something different. What fills you is not quantity, but depth. The heart remembers intensity, not volume. That's why an introvert may decline 10 invitations but accept one dinner with a trusted friend. In that single evening, they find more nourishment than all the other outings combined. This is not avoidance, it's discernment. Choosing carefully what enters your inner space is an act of self-respect. Picture this. One person attends a massive event, leaves with dozens of photos but little memory of the conversations. Another spends hours talking honestly with a close friend about fears and dreams. Years later, it's that conversation, not the crowd, that still lives vividly inside them. This principle applies beyond social life. It's not about reading 50 books a year, but choosing the few that reshape you, like Memories, Dreams, Reflections by Jung. It's not about endless binge watching, but a single film that makes you rethink life, like The Truman Show or Dead Poets Society. Even in work, the same holds true. Filling your calendar with shallow tasks only breeds exhaustion. But focusing on fewer projects with genuine impact produces results that matter. Less noise, more meaning. That is the compass for a life aligned with the soul. Of course, many will see this as strange. But chasing the superficial never satisfies someone who has tasted depth. Quantity distracts, depth transforms. Once you experience the richness of fewer but fuller moments, you stop craving the empty calories of excess. And when you embrace depth over distraction, your home itself transforms. It stops being just four walls and becomes a temple, a sacred ground where your essence flourishes. For Jung, places are not just physical, they are living symbols of our inner state. When home is honored consciously, it becomes more than shelter. It becomes a temple. It's where your scattered pieces come together, where your psyche finds order, where silence becomes sacred ground. Look closely. Every corner can mirror your soul. A shelf of books that feed your mind, a plant that whispers about nurturing life, a candle glowing in the dark, symbolizing clarity amid uncertainty. When you treat these details intentionally, home stops being walls and becomes a reflection of your essence. Practical example, you return tired after a long day. You dim the lights, brew tea, and sit quietly in your favorite chair. That simple ritual resets your energy. It's not luxury, it's sacred routine. Repeated often, it transforms your space into a sanctuary where you can reconnect with yourself. And this temple is not fixed, it evolves with you. A painting on the wall, an heirloom on a desk, a new arrangement of furniture, all carry meaning. Just as the psyche changes through individuation, the home transforms too, silently keeping record of your inner journey. Treating your home as a temple means curating it, keeping what uplifts, removing what clutters, creating a corner for reflection, even in a small space. It's less about size and more about intention. A sacred environment supports a sacred mind, reminding you daily of what you value most. When you start living this way, your house is no longer a hiding place. It's a fountain. Within its silence, wounds heal, ideas are born, and strength is renewed. Each act of stillness leaves an imprint, layering your space with restorative energy. And in realizing this, you uncover a profound truth. You don't always need to travel the world to find meaning. Sometimes, the portal to wholeness is right there, waiting for you, within the walls you already call home. Now that we've walked through these 10 truths, let me ask you, do you still believe that preferring silence makes you weak? Jung showed us that what looks like withdrawal is often a compass, pointing us toward individuation. Every quiet choice is a step into authenticity. The real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep forcing yourself to fit into a rhythm that exhausts you, or will you start honoring the tempo of your soul? Change doesn't begin outside. It begins the moment you accept who you are inside. Think about your own life. How many times have you said yes to things you didn't want, just to please others? And how many times have you ignored your need for quiet, even when your body begged for rest? Maybe this is the moment to stop apologizing for being different. Tell me in the comments, which of these truths resonated the most with you? Sharing your experience might help someone else who has been silently struggling with the same feelings. Sometimes, one honest voice is enough to break another's sense of isolation. If this message touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is where we explore psychology, philosophy, and self-mastery in ways that make life clearer, deeper, and more real. Don't just consume content. Join a journey of growth. Remember, transformation is not about speed, but about truth, and truth whispers loudest in silence. Every time you honor that silence, you build resilience, creativity, and strength. That's how solitude stops being a cage and becomes your greatest source of power. Before you go, watch the video on the screen and linked in the description. It will take you even deeper into Jung's wisdom and give you the next step on your path. Because as Jung taught us, the journey inward never ends. It only expands.